Hello and welcome to teacherswebhost.com. This tutorial is about how to add student accounts to your classroom. So a lot of people use Google Classroom for their content management system. Teacherswebhost.com integrates beautifully with that, and let me show you one of the ways. Let's suppose you want to create student accounts for Teachers Web Host so that you can have assessments there. Once you've logged into your site, this is mine, click on Students. Click over here on Import Google Classroom Roster. Now you may have to click a button here that gives permission to Teachers Web Host to access your Google Classroom. And you do need to be signed in on Google to do this. Here are my sample classes at Google Classroom. Now, I don't use Google Classroom as my content management. I use Teachers Web Host for obvious reasons, but I have these set up so that people can see how they work. I'm going to click on the sample class because there's a fake student here that I can use. And here it gives you an idea of how the system works. I can click on all of the names of the students who are already in the roster for Google Classroom. And when I click this button, confirm these import these students into sample class, you're all set. So Teachers Web Host works a little differently than Google Classroom. In Google Classroom, students are enrolled in specific classes and only have access to those classes. Teachers Web Host at the moment is an open enrollment site, so that when your student logs in, he or she would be able to go into any course and see the materials. And so that is how you import a Google Classroom roster. But that's not the only way to make a student account. One can also make student accounts manually. Click on the word student in the tab. Click on Add Student to Master List. And here you see a control that allows you to generate student accounts. So if students are going to be using Google Signin, like if you have a one-to-one laptop situation with Chromebooks, for example, this is probably the harder way to do this. But essentially, you type in the name of a student. And you'll notice here, when I get to the last name field, I click Tab, and it generates a username, it generates a temporary password, and puts your cursor in the email field. Email is not required for student accounts, but certainly it is useful, and you can't reset. A student couldn't reset their own password without it. Students access your classes in one of two ways. They either use Google to log into your class here at Teachers Web Host, or they use a username, password, and virtual room number combination to get themselves authenticated to the site. So that is two ways to make a student account. A third way that's evolved over the years is this, a self-registration code. So click on Generate Self-Registration Code, and what you have here is a series of letters. And you can give any student this series of letters, and they can become a member of your class if they have this code and they have this virtual classroom number. And the way that looks on the front of the site is here. A student would click on Student, and down here it says Register with Registration Code on the student login page. And the controls look like this. And you'll notice here there is a space for the registration code, and there's a place for the virtual classroom. There is yet another way a student can create an account at your Teachers Web Host site. They can also create their account using Google Signin. And for this, they need the virtual classroom number and the registration code that I mentioned some moments ago. So on the one hand, I apologize for the complexity of this, but this evolved over the needs of teachers over the years, as did all other parts of this website, to be able to do things in different ways. So I hope the flexibility is more useful than the complexity is annoying. Thank you for listening.